creepy.
Hi.
Oh, my head. There was this, like, yellow bear guy, and then everything went black. Wait a minute. Where am I? Dude, does this mean... Am I back in one of those Five Nights at Freddy's Minecraft roleplays? I'm sure you've at least heard of these things before, as I've made quite a worryingly large amount of videos covering the subject. Even my therapist is considering alternative options. I grew up watching this stuff religiously, and unfortunately this growing interest has not slowed down in my adulthood. And while I mainly talked about the ones I personally grew up with in the first part of this series, and go watch that if you haven't, I was, passionately informed about the numerous other popular roleplays I neglected to talk about. So, in short, I'm gonna be taking a closer look at just a few more, as I need to set a good example for, Mr. Nightguard over here.
Huh. Did someone say something?
With probably the most unoriginal name here, Minecraft Five Nights at Freddy's is quite the series to cover, having around 4,000 videos to its name, so please bear with me. For those unfamiliar, unlike a lot of other roleplay channels around this time, the main focus of this series was around sister location. Albeit very loosely though. Instead of having a long winding story built up across a variety of different videos, each episode here essentially just boils down to random shenanigans in Circus Baby's Pizza World prior to its grand opening. I mean it too, there's really not a lot going on most of the time, which results in videos like Don't Play Simon Says at 3 AM, Funtime Foxy becomes Lolbit's cat, Freezing Cold Ice Challenge winner gets a private jet, and maybe like the occasional video actually related to the series. Yeah, besides the characters, their barely mentioned backstory, and the rare moments of security guards peeking in from time to time, these early videos were never meant to follow any of the games, really. Now, that's not to say there's not a story here, it just doesn't really matter that much in the long run.
Years? Almost?
Instead, the series would much rather prioritize the characters, and basically how long they could survive a 20-minute video without a script of any sort. Our main cast here, through basically the entirety of the series, is Funtime Foxy, Funtime Freddy, Ballora, Baby, and the puppets, with lots of wiggle room for other smaller characters, sometimes literally smaller. In the nicest way I can possibly put it, the actual carelessness that was put into each video is almost its strong suit, especially when one of the actors messes up their lines or just simply goes out of character.
The reason why we are here is not why, but when are we here?
So deep.
It is so deep.
You win the whole thing. I'll shoot puppet.
No!
I think the way they're able to create long-standing, reoccurring characters on the fly while progressing through some sort of plot is, I'll be honest, pretty entertaining for a channel that's definitely strongly geared towards children. But yeah, I can admit that most of this is all still pretty dumb.
1, 2, 3.
What? We have mice scarier than you.
One of the more interesting things about this series in particular, at least early on, was that they occasionally showed up on other related roleplay channels, related used very loosely again. They, at one point, used to be part of a big superhero YouTuber universe, I think is the best way to put it, sometimes having small mentions to characters like Batman in videos themselves, or just having complete cameos in others. And this wasn't just their version of Batman either. This guy had his own separate channel with Batman Minecraft roleplays and videos. It was like a whole thing. In fact, go to some of the earliest videos on this specific channel, and you'll find they used to be one of them too, but Iron Man.
Jarvis, tell Mr. Stark that just because he owns the suit, it doesn't mean he can call me to do his chores whenever he wants.
Jarvis?
Sir, Deadpool is charging right at you.
What? Whoa.
Since it would practically be impossible for me to go into any sort of detail with the series, since it, spans through thousands of episodes, numerous channels and POVs, and seems to honestly just be flat out confusing in its own right, I'm really not even going to attempt it here. Do you even know how much merch intros I'd have to go through?
Why I'm here in the first place?
is to sell him new shirts at superfunshirt.com.
But essentially everything I've talked about so far fits pretty neatly as this series' classification of a Season 1, which all culminates in the pizzeria eventually being completely destroyed by Ennard. Yeah, he was like a voice living in Foxy's head for a really long time, it's a whole thing. However, specifically at this exact point in the series, things started to sort of be shaken up a bit. In what's referred to as Season 2, the series was really no longer about Funtime Foxy and the rest of the sister location gang. Well, at least some of them. Putting a lot more focus on newer characters, more collabs, dynamic camera movements, better editing, more of a plot, things of that sort. And even when old characters eventually came back, they were usually replaced by entirely new actors. And I'm definitely not the first person to say it, but this just doesn't really hit the same. This channel was essentially founded by the main group. Taking even just a few of them out kind of ruins the whole vibe that was going on in the first place. Oh, well, I didn't have to wait too long for that. Yeah, due to creative decisions from the production company that originally owned the channel, a majority of the old actors actually disbanded from the old channel and decided to start an entirely new one, aptly named The Oddities. Yeah, I like this name much better. That's right, they're all basically back, just in a slightly different location this time. While the old channel, as I'll call it, slowly started to shift its content and characters towards like security breach related roleplays, even putting a larger focus on Sun and Moon, around the time of its release, just stopping about 2 years ago from now, The Oddities has, to this day, stuck to their guns and continues to do pretty much the same thing as they've always done, so not much to really get into. Okay, I think I get it. Just need to appear slightly more intimidating. Easily, and I mean easily, the most suggested channel from my last video was Moosecraft's FNAF World series. And for good reason, it's definitely a standout. Rather than focusing on security guards working the night shift and grease-covered pizzerias, instead we're stuck inside a giant amusement park named, yeah, FNAF World. Here, Moose and Jay, after traversing this weirdly empty, pizza sauce-stained theme park, are suddenly hunted by rogue animatronics on their visits. However, it turns out to be a huge misunderstanding, as Lulba here was simply trying to warn them about the dangers that lie in this park, with the only way to make it out of here alive, supposedly, is by arming themselves with a few animatronic friends. Unlike practically every Five Nights at Freddy's roleplay here, the main gimmick of this series pertains to how FNAF World actually plays as a game. See, as the series progresses, our group grows larger and larger, with more FNAF-related characters added to the party. Through a moose milk ritual, usually in these big boss fights they have at the end of each episode. These, in particular, are where I think the series truly shines, having cool set pieces related to the character itself, and in turn, at least most of the time, recruiting them to their party after defeating them, all in an attempt to defeat Virtual Freddy, of all things. Oh, you know, the big bad of FNAF World, obviously. Didn't even really spell his name right here, but anyway, his plan involves taking over the park, trapping both Moose and Jay, also the park's owner, to do something with them. It involves keeping them alive for now, so yeah. While most of the series can be chalked up to explaining exactly what's happening in the moment for practically the entire duration of the video, it also leaves plenty of room for fun character interactions, and takes itself serious enough to kinda care about these characters. Speaking of Virtual Freddy, who's constantly shown throughout the series to be a pretty serious threat to our group, accompanied by Purple Guy halfway through. It makes a little more sense, I guess. He's evil, plans to transport himself in an indestructible body to take over the park. Or vice versa, I don't really know. The entire series, mind you, about 80 or so videos for each FNAF World character, being about an hour in length, follows this same sort of philosophy. By continuously finding certain characters or bosses, defeating them, and either getting stronger weapons, even sometimes better armor, or learning just a little more about their strange predicament. But like I said before, just due to how different this series is compared to literally everything else on the table, it's oddly charming, and in my opinion, works a lot better for the FNAF World formula they're working with than, others. I also really like the idea they implemented for switching characters in their party, as most animatronics run on a depleting battery here that needs to be charged every so often. I will say though, the similarities to Mango Tango series, again another roleplay I covered last time, are pretty apparent, even including the same stupid jump scare at the end of each video. Didn't even try to make it make sense. God Cawthon even appears in this one. Here, he's the moose milk god, their words, not mine. As expected by now, the longer we get into the series, the messier it gets. They even resorted to using Halloween edition characters of all things for full episodes here, though I do like their inclusions. I will say, having Chipper be a mainstay character in a roleplay like this is surely an achievement in of itself. But spoiler alert, he's actually the one who kills Purple Guy by shooting him with a gun. This results in, of course, a big finale with Virtual Freddy. Big being quite an understatement, this video is almost an hour and a half long. It seems that throughout the entirety of the series, Virtual Freddy was only really looking for one thing, being Moose's holy grail moose milk, a plot twist of the century. Yeah, it somehow gives him powers beyond recognition, and ensues a fight between him and Unspeakable, the park's owner. He disappeared for a while. If it's one thing, I will say this final fight does resemble those flashy strobe-inducing FNAF world fights, so that's something. However, by installing a few viruses into his software and with a little help from these ultimatum staffs, Moose's party is able to pretty easily extinguish Virtual Freddy from this plane of existence. Pretty sure I'm the first person to ever say a sentence like that. It only results in Unspeakable, or Nathan, or the park's owner guy, just dying completely. Although seemingly he dipped after like the 13th episode here, so this is just like an actor playing him. Surely we won't ever see this happen again, right? Anyway, which means that Moose and Jay can finally leave the park, even stealing back their money from admission. They seem a little shorter here though for some reason. However, come on, of course that's not all. This series, for a pretty obvious reason, had split off into a bunch of different, sort of loosely based sub-series around FNAF. Whether it was about all of them at a school, which albeit seems to be the actual continuation of FNAF World somehow, or becoming detectives and finding a sister location, or having animatronics take over an entire city after the animatronics drop a nuke on it, or Wait, what? Yeah, instead of talking about the countless other series that Moose did, I really want to talk about this one in particular. Trust me, it's good. First things first, Afton Robotics, the richest company ever at this point, I guess, has basically taken over the world, making self-help animatronics for everyone to use freely. Surely a great idea. So much so that the FBI and CIA, here formed into the FWI, have recruited Moose and Jay to look into the inner workings of the company. This directly leads to, and I'm not kidding, Afton Robotics using nuclear launch codes given to them by the president to completely wipe out the entire city they're in, killing supposedly millions of people. Much like their FNAF World series, they recruit the help of a few animatronics they'd met before, but instead of magical staffs and mystical abilities, it's all swapped out for guns. Since these animatronics have taken over the world, essentially, they've upgraded to much higher standards of weaponry. Seriously, they like regularly get shot at by animatronic snipers hiding in rooftops. They run from the Phantom Cartel, their words not mine, and end up finding Lolbit again. Not for a super long time though, as Virtual Freddy, disguised as the Salt Bear himself, shoots Lolbit. Yeah, it's explained that he was the one that actually dropped the nuke, and swiftly prepares an attack on Moose and Jay. However, and that's it. The series was never continued, and probably won't ever be in the future. Probably. While Moose has definitely been through his fair share of Minecraft roleplays, all covering this very strange series, this one seems to easily be the magnum opus of the channel, and the one that most people remember. At least it seems that way. And while I could dive deep into these other series, I don't really think I need to. You get the general gist. The series was long enough as is, and I'll probably explode if I hear another outdated 2016 related meme again.
I got this from Knowledge and this guy over there.
I can't get enough of this stuff.
What are you doing?
Nothing.
TheFamousFilms is another pretty big roleplay channel that was around during this time, and while, like most, he had a variety of different series, spanning from The Crafting Dead to Friday the 13th, there was a huge focus put on what else but Five Nights at Freddy's, of course. The series I'm personally most familiar with can actually be considered his first, being called Five Nights at Freddy's 4. Quite a jump. Here, a much younger Brian and his friend Ryan are excited about the kick-ass sleepover they're about to have, a killer all-nighter. literally. Left home alone, they both have to survive each hour as a new nightmare animatronic continues to stalk them, and also jump scares them a lot. I won't lie, these can sometimes get you pretty good. But besides that, there's really not that much to these at all, besides two guys are running around a house for a while. However, not long after, TheFamousFilms decided to dip his toes into a more original idea for another series, being called FNAF Hotel. This one, you know, takes place in a FNAF-themed hotel. It's literally actually called that for some reason. In which Brian's parents go missing at night, animatronics start to chase him around the place. He meets up with this guy named Cody, they take them on one by one. It's actually very similar to their first one, just a lot more interesting this time. At least they're not just like running around a house. But over time, a larger story and more progressive plot started to show up, filling itself for around 6 whole seasons. It does get a little crazy, though they really do put their all into the voice acting here.
Hey guys, what happened?
Be careful! No! No, Cody! But to sum it up, it involves a literal bottomless hotel, hiding the many creations of a purple guy. Shocker. Lots of these characters are revealed to be as kids, Cody and Kat at least, and what's actually pretty faithful to the games, which was quite surprising for the time. But by far, his most iconic truly seems to be a series named... They've gotta come up with better names for these, come on. First released in early 2018, FNAF 6 Pizzeria Simulator is about, well, you can probably guess it, it's Pizzeria Simulator, or at least is based upon it. This time around, Brian here, with the help of his helpful buddy, Helpy, is simply working towards continuously upgrading his newly purchased pizzeria since he had spent it all on the building itself. Now, how does he do this exactly? Well, by playing different Hypixel minigames, of course. Yeah, I was pretty surprised too. In this series, at least in the beginning, instead of a large overarching story of sorts, the majority of the video consists of Brian, and usually a few more characters he tags along with, playing a few minigames on Hypixel, like Skywars, TNT Run, Party Games, or Murder Mystery. Pretty sure he played this one the most though. This being the main way that Brian here earned currency for different characters or accessories for the pizzeria, with wins giving him a slightly bigger bonus. Just like with the Oddities, the main grab here was with how different the characters all were and how they interacted with each other, because as the series progressed, this cast just kept growing and growing. However, as the videos continued, there were revelations of a larger story at hand, usually in videos skipping the whole minigame segment entirely. All, again, staying sorta semi-faithful to the game's story, at least the common consensus at the time. These switches into more serious tones, however, at least to me, are pretty jarring. Again, the voice actors are killing it here, trust me, especially since most of them are all played by different people. It's just like really over the top.
He showed me. Right?
Don't mess with me!
If you haven't figured out the portal then,
You're
what's taking
not
you
tough.
so long?
You're not
He
tough.
already figured it out!
I mean, the video preceding the direct series finale 3-parter is literally about Brian turning into a doll and playing hide and seek. Whatever. To elaborate a little more about this finale, it involves Springtrap kidnapping Brian and essentially forcing him to kill a bunch of the animatronic pals he's made along the way in glorified saw traps. I mean, I can imagine this being a bit traumatizing for the audience that's stuck around for a little while. These are mainstay characters being killed off pretty gruesomely.
No! Happy Frog!
Happy Frog!
Happy Frog! Ah!
But no time for tears, as Springtrap has somehow used the portal they always jump into to play minigames in order to transform himself back into William Afton. And Brian seems like the only one able to stop him. Till like Rockstar Freddy appears. I didn't really mention it before, but this comes as quite a shocker because Rockstar Freddy has stayed fairly dormant in the series for a pretty long time now. Their fight ends pretty quick though, as the constant upgrades that Freddy received throughout the season, while believed to be deactivated, has made him quite the strong bear. But he ends up sacrificing himself to make sure William stays down for good. This leads to, basically the entire pizzeria being completely destroyed. However, Helpy, who sort of knew this was gonna happen anyway, decides to finally show Brian the amusement park they'd worked on. Also revealing that they brought essentially every animatronic that died back to life. Yeah, even Rockstar Freddy. Of course, this all leads into the eventual Season 2, aptly named Really? I won't get too much into it here, as we're already sort of teetering the whole revisiting old series, but he started to shift the focus into more story-related plots, having much less high-pixel minigame segments and a lot more collaborations mixed in. Which I forgot to mention did happen quite a bit already, even with the Oddities and their other channel, which all seem to have a much broader appeal overall. Right now though, it seems Brian's taken quite a big break from YouTube as a whole, finishing with, so far, the 5th season of the series. I'd say quite impressive, considering how much this all has to tie into each other. Okay, this is it! Now's my chance. Oh. As you know, early on in Sam Gladiator's FNAF Roleplays, which I mostly covered in my last video, Gizzy here mainly starred as Sam's night guard co-worker buddy guy, sometimes replaced by Tortoise in its own sub-series, sorta. However, in the switch to the main Nightmare series, Gizzy really never made another appearance, or even mention. Reason being, he went off and did his own. Surprisingly, seemingly due to some internal conflicts between the two. Although I guess I really don't know, because in his new series, he immediately jumps the gun in showing Sam's decapitated head. Gizzy, I'm not sure if you're really allowed to do that. His own series is, I'll be honest, pretty basic all around. It stays pretty faithful to where Sam's series left off, which really isn't saying much, but changes the more gameplay-focused videos for a story?
No, I think he's looking up. Oh god,
Yeah?
he's checking you out. I think he likes you.
In Gizzy's case, his series is kind of boiled down to either being pretty basic recreations of events from the games, or just completely twisting the events on its head, taking very little from the source material. His FNAF 3 series takes that former position, as it's almost as standard as you can get with something like this. Take Jed for example, who acts as Gizzy's night guard buddy for his FNAF 3 series, although they're technically not night guards. The larger plot focuses on both Gizzy and Jed trying to survive each night from Springtrap and a few phantoms that litter the pizzeria, as they can't exactly leave. However, we later learn that Jed is in fact not just some random person who got trapped in here with Gizzy. He was actually the creator for the original animatronics. The thing is though, he later dies in the series finale, just 2 videos later, as the animatronics need to like sacrifice their maker to pass on or something like that. This also reveals that Springtrap, supposedly the same one from Sam's series, is actually just Purple Guy wearing some sort of suit, who plans to blame the murders he caused on both Gizzy and Jed. Although, before that could happen, a team of police officers come, and even though he's pretty defenseless here, just straight up kill the guy. Also revealing that there's no actual exterior at the location. Oh, okay. See what I mean? There's like things here that just really don't matter a lot in the long run. But, like I said before, this series in particular was just the tip of the iceberg. These just got crazier and crazier as the videos kept coming. His FNAF 4 series revolves around the ghosts of both Jed and the animatronics, that ends with, believe it or not, Gizzy's girlfriend being Purple Guy's vengeful daughter, who dies by his therapist, of all people.
Oh my god. Therapist! You saved my life!
Yes. I followed you because I knew you were in danger. I saved your life.
Which all continued in his FNAF World series, featuring FearRaiser, which for some reason now feels like a pretty good time to switch over to... Okay, so technically speaking, this is somewhat just a continuation of Gizzy's series, at least his roleplay adventure one, which strangely always involves some sort of YouTuber in the mix, without them actually being there at all.
Hello guys, what's up? Dad, how's it going? Oh my god, it's good to see you.
Whether it was Stampy, which was most of the time, Dan TDM, or Joey Graciffa goes to hell, Gizzy always had to rescue one of these guys from the clutches of Mr. Kibbles, and wouldn't you know it, they ended up at Freddy's at the end of the series, because of course they would. However, in FearRaiser's, or Jordan's series, which was all mostly just his perspective on things, instead of culminating in a big finale with Mr. Kibbles, like Gizzy's did, his ends with a hypnotist forcing him into a sleep state where he has to crack jokes as Freddy Fazbear.
What's large, gray, and doesn't matter? An irrelevant.
That's actually pretty much it though, there's surprisingly not much else to this one. But much like Gizzy's series again, it seems Jordan decided to dip his toes even further into these YouTuber kidnapped at Freddy's type videos. And others. Wow. Easily his most popular series was his Goes into FNAF 4 one, which again involved YouTubers who, reminder, had no actual part in the making of the videos, running around some sort of location from scary animatronic guys, this time being in his friend's grandma's house. A fair warning though, she is a bit of a freak for some reason.
And a lever! Oh, sweet. Okay, maybe I can open that door. What is this? Grandma's what?
Jordan, why did you put this in the video? Nightmare Freddy acted as the big bad here, operating as the leader of the animatronics, which also always had different skins each episode. This like really bugged me, honestly. Spanning the 5 nights here, Jordan would have to rescue a certain YouTuber, usually with a guest star, run around this mansion for about 10 minutes, and finally end up in the middle of the pool area. You know, since animatronics can't like swim. Well, Jordan definitely does a lot of back support for this series. He really is kind of funny here, honestly. I think it really just shows how ridiculous something like this even is. It didn't even really try to hide the fact at all that these weren't the actual guys like in the videos, so.
Let me silence it. Okay.
Oh, hi!
Okay, it's silenced.
However, that's not what I'm actually here to talk about. As he made more FNAF roleplay series, the evolving story got a lot more interesting, even if it was still just getting chased by animatronics. In a mansion, still, even. In his 5 Nights at Candy series, after 3 sequential attempts of trying to kidnap Jordan, Nightmare Freddy enlists the help of Candy, who immediately, and off-screen, kidnaps every single one of them in Herobrine's mansion, of all things. After getting a call from Gizzy to come visit, who's just Candy mimicking his voice, by the way, Jordan ends up having to free each Nightmare animatronic to help him defeat Candy. Also, like the devil or something like that. See, eventually in the series, they meet up with a guy named Ivan Fairweather, a name only mentioned before in a notebook they found in the mansion, which told them of some gear they could use to defeat the roaming ghosts trapped here with them. Ivan, a few episodes later, takes them to a portal where they, again, meet Ivan Fairweather. The real one this time. Because fake Ivan here was actually just some villain named Lucius, which we're told is supposedly the reincarnation of Fear itself.
But I'm Fear.
Wait, what?
And let me clarify. His name is FearRaiser.
Anyway, this all culminated in their FNAF World series, in which both Gizzy and Jordan revisit a few past locations, and some that are just completely unrelated, to try and free a few of Freddy's friends to help them defeat, Balloon Boy. However, continuing the storyline from the Candy series, this was all just an elaborate ruse.
It was me this whole time!
That's right, Lucius is now like taking over Jordan's body, I think, in an attempt to rule the world. But then he somehow loses the body, traps Gizzy, Jordan, Candy, and Ivan in another portal to now take over the world. Except it all like backfires in a really confusing mess of an ending. Ivan dies like super quick here, and Candy, who's Lucius now, sacrifices himself by taking over Lucius's body, but like, I thought he was already Lucius, I don't know. From then on, with the upcoming release of Sister Location, both Gizzy and Jordan basically decided to divert from their original storylines, which also meant grabbing new guest stars. Using new very lightly. That's right, Sam ended up returning for Gizzy's series, choking out the beheading for a fake dummy head that Springtrap placed there. Not that this timeline really like mattered anyway, but however, this just really isn't a roleplay in the technical sense. They just kind of like just do things.
So once upon a time, there was a British person named GizzyGazza.
That's me. That's me.
And nobody ever loved him.
While Jordan's series definitely held up a little better regarding like an actual story, it's mostly contrived of beats placed in his past FNAF Legends videos. Probably because it's like a sequel to that series, which involves starting a rebellion against animatronics who, once you know it, want to like take over the world. I mean, I like the tortoises here. A little later on, Gizzy would make FNAF Switch, a series where instead of playing the usual role as the night guard, he and some other person became the animatronics, trying to thwart Purple Guy's plans of setting his soul free. Yeah.
So now that they've done it, this place will shut down and my soul will be set free. What a good day for me. I'm also pregnant.
Funny thing here is that FearRaiser only really shows up at around the halfway mark through the series, taking on Foxy's role, because Chica, or Kib, or Kibka, just straight up dies at the end of a video by falling down an elevator shaft. I literally thought it was like unintended at first. To make things short, Golden Freddy is like the real big bad here, but they just end up leaving anyway, leading to a season 2, which is about demonic rituals, NASA scientists, Springtrap's here, Chica dies again.
Let's speak, no!
Jordan never downloaded the texture pack, it seems. Also just shows up only at the finale for some reason, again.
And we performed a ritual on him and he's gone. So.
I remember that.
You weren't here for that.
I was testing you. I knew that.
They revisit the FNAF 4 series house, and at the end, seal away Springtrap. With, of course, Gizzy explaining it all at the very end. This whole series continues for a sister location theme season, in which they just finally get their bodies back. I could go in depth here. It's basically the exact same thing again. I really don't need to. And for the release of Pizzeria Simulator, Gizzy, and probably the best series here, of course made a roleplay about it, which literally just ends with him dying.
No! No!
FearRaiser afterwards didn't really do a whole lot pertaining to continuing this series. In fact, he basically migrated to a completely different channel, consisting of strictly VR content that hasn't been updated in about 8 months, at least from the time I'm making this video. But it seems like he's doing okay. And while we're on it, Gizzy sort of did the same thing too, at least the migrating to a different channel part, because he's made a hell of a lot of FNAF roleplays since then. Going from a dedicated Help Wanted series, directly made FNAF Kids, which featured TheFamousFilms, a Willy's Wonderland series, and even continued a series with Sam. Of course not through the same timeline though, even though it feels exactly the same.
Wait a second. If this is Gizzy, then who was I talking to?
That's the real Chica!
The quality in a lot of these, I'll be honest, are much better in the grand scheme of things. It at least feels like there's like an actual story to grab a hold of this time.
Hey, Willy, what time is it?
Well, I mean, at least they're not just like winging it for the most part. Gizzy, at least right now, seems to have sort of left the whole YouTube scene behind him, finishing with a Yandere High School series. Seems to always come back around. Well, I, really screwed that one up, didn't I? Look, all I wanted to do was act as one of the animatronics in a 2016-styled Five Nights at Freddy's Minecraft roleplay. Is that too hard to ask? Well, I guess now that I think about it, it's sort of hard to ask.
Hey, you! All this is coming out of my paycheck. And I don't even get paid a lot.
Oh, yeah, I almost forgot. So, what do I do now?